Good morning slash afternoon slash evening, everyone. Let's talk about something we've all faced at some point, being ignored. That moment when someone makes you feel invisible, as if your presence doesn't matter. And in that moment, a question creeps in, am I not enough? But let me tell you something powerful today. You are enough. You have always been enough. And anyone who fails to see your worth is simply not meant for you. I want you to remember this. When someone ignores you, it's not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their choices. And their choice does not define you. Your response does. So what do you do when you feel ignored? You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't shrink yourself trying to fit into someone else's world. You rise, you grow, you shift your focus back to yourself. Because people who truly belong in your life will never make you question your worth. Never let the silence of others make you doubt your own voice. The right people will hear you, the right people will see you, and the right people will never make you feel like an option. So today I ask you, stop waiting for a response, stop expecting recognition from those who don't value you, and stop giving your energy to those who don't reciprocate. Instead, invest in yourself. Love yourself so fiercely that being ignored no longer feels like rejection, it feels like redirection. Because, darling, your presence is a privilege, not a plea. And anyone who doesn't see that, let them go. Thank you. Your worth is not defined by someone else's attention. Read that again. Let it sink in. Because too often we measure our value based on who acknowledges us, who texts us back, who invites us in, and who chooses to keep us in their lives. And when someone ignores us, when they stop responding, or when they fail to recognize our presence, we begin to question ourselves. Did I say something wrong? Am I not good enough? What did I do to deserve this? But the truth is, your worth has never been in the hands of someone else. It has never been measured by how many people notice you, how many messages you receive, or how many times your name is called in a crowded room. Your worth is something you were born with. It is in your essence, in your kindness, in your strength, in your resilience. It is in the way you show up for yourself every single day, even when no one else does. The moment you start tying your value to the attention of others, you give them power over you, power they should never have had in the first place. Because people are fickle, they get distracted, they come and go, their priorities change. And if you spend your life seeking validation from people who are not even sure of themselves, you will always feel like you are not enough. Think about it. How many times have you ignored someone not because they were unworthy, but because you were dealing with your own chaos? How many times have you been caught up in your own struggles and failed to acknowledge someone else's feelings? We all have. And that alone should tell you that someone ignoring you does not mean you are lacking. It simply means they are not in a place to see you right now. And that is okay. What is not okay is letting it shake your confidence, letting it break your spirit, or letting it make you believe that you need to change to be noticed. You do not need to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's world. You do not need to try harder to earn the attention of someone who does not appreciate your presence in the first place. You are allowed to be exactly who you are in all your brilliance and still be ignored by some people. That does not mean you are not brilliant. That does not mean you are not worthy. That just means those people were never meant to be your people. And that is one of the most liberating things you can realize. Not everyone is supposed to see you, and not everyone is meant to stay. What truly matters is how you see yourself when no one else is watching. Do you love yourself enough? Do you believe in your own value, even when no one is validating it? Because that is what makes the difference. When you know your worth, when you are secure in who you are, attention becomes irrelevant. Praise becomes secondary, and whether someone acknowledges you or not, you continue to shine because that is just who you are. There is power in being so self-assured that someone's indifference does not shake you. There is beauty in knowing that you are enough, even when you are standing alone. And there is peace in realizing that your existence is not meant to be proven to anyone. It simply is. So the next time someone ignores you, do not let it make you feel small. Do not let it make you doubt yourself. Instead, remind yourself that their actions do not define you. They never did. The only thing that defines you is how you carry yourself despite it all. With grace, with confidence, and with the unwavering belief that you are and always will be enough. Never chase validation. The moment you begin seeking approval from others, you hand them the power to decide your worth, and that is a dangerous place to be, living in the constant fear of whether you are good enough, waiting for someone else to confirm what you should already know. We grow up being conditioned to seek validation. As children, we look to our parents and teachers for approval. We are praised when we do well and corrected when we make mistakes. Slowly, we start associating our value with how others perceive us. If they smile, we must be doing something right. If they frown, we must be doing something wrong. And as we grow older, this pattern deepens. We start chasing validation in relationships, in friendships, in social media likes, in job titles, and in the opinions of people who do not even truly know us. But what happens when that validation is not given? When someone does not acknowledge your effort? When your achievements go unnoticed? When the praise you were expecting never comes? Do you suddenly become less valuable? Do you suddenly stop being worthy? The truth is, external validation is fleeting. It is inconsistent. It is unreliable. People's opinions are ever changing. One day they might praise you, and the next they might criticize you for the very thing they once admired. If you base your self-worth on their approval, you will always be at their mercy, constantly trying to please, constantly trying to prove yourself, constantly running in circles, hoping that someone will finally say you are enough. But here is the thing, you were enough before anyone noticed you. You were enough before anyone validated you, and you will continue to be enough regardless of who acknowledges it. The only validation that truly matters is the one that comes from within. Think about the people who inspire you, the ones who stand tall, unapologetically themselves. Do you think they got there by waiting for others to tell them they were worthy? No, they got there because they decided they were enough, regardless of what the world thought. They stopped seeking approval and started embracing who they were, flaws, strengths, and everything in between. You do not need permission to be great. You do not need someone else to recognize your talent, your beauty, your intelligence, or your kindness for it to be real. The sun does not ask for validation to shine, it simply does. The ocean does not wait for approval to be vast and powerful, it just is. And in the same way, you do not need validation to be valuable, you already are. Chasing validation is a never-ending race. Even if you get it today, you will crave more tomorrow. It is an addiction that keeps you dependent on outside opinions instead of trusting yourself. And the worst part, when you constantly seek validation, you start losing yourself. You start molding yourself into what others expect you to be instead of who you truly are. You silence your voice to fit in. You dim your light so others feel comfortable. You abandon your own truth in exchange for acceptance. But at what cost? Imagine a life where you stop chasing validation and start embracing yourself exactly as you are, where you do not need a certain number of likes, compliments, or acknowledgments to feel complete, where you trust your own voice, follow your own path, and define success on your own terms. That is real freedom. That is real confidence. That is what it means to truly know your worth. So stop waiting for someone else to tell you that you matter. Stop looking for permission to be yourself. Stop measuring your worth through the lens of others. Stand tall in your own truth. Trust your own journey. And remember, you do not need validation to be valuable. You already are. Silence is an answer too. It is not always wrapped in words, but it speaks volumes. It carries a message, often louder than spoken conversations, and yet many of us refuse to accept it for what it is. We overanalyze, we wait, we hope for a different response, believing that maybe if we try harder, explain more, or reach out one more time, we will finally get the clarity we crave. But the truth is, silence itself is clarity. It is an answer, whether we like it or not. When someone chooses silence instead of a response, they are telling you something. Maybe they do not care enough to engage. Maybe they are too afraid to be honest. Maybe they have already made their decision but do not have the courage to say it out loud. Maybe their silence is a way of avoiding conflict, or maybe it is simply a reflection of their priorities. Either way, their silence is communication in its own form. And instead of filling the silence with assumptions or excuses, we need to learn to listen to what it is truly saying. We have all been there, waiting for a text, refreshing our inbox, hoping for a call, holding on to an unanswered question. We convince ourselves that there must be an explanation, that maybe they are just busy, that maybe they didn't see it, that maybe they will get back to us when the time is right. And while sometimes that is true, most of the time it is not. Because people make time for what matters to them. People respond when they care, and when they choose not to, it is rarely an accident. Silence is not just an answer, it is a choice. It is a decision someone makes, consciously or unconsciously, to disengage, to distance themselves, to walk away without confrontation. And as painful as it may be, we must learn to accept it for what it is, instead of chasing after explanations that will never come. There's a certain dignity in not demanding answers from those who are unwilling to give them. There is strength in recognizing that if someone wanted to speak, they would. If they wanted to explain, they would. If they wanted to keep you in their life, they would find a way to do so. The problem is we are often too focused on what their silence means that we forget to pay attention to how it makes us feel. We get so caught up in decoding their behavior that we ignore our own emotions. Does it feel good to be ignored? Does it feel good to wonder where you stand with someone? Does it feel good to be left waiting in uncertainty? No, it does not. And that alone should be enough of an answer. If someone's silence leaves you feeling unsettled, unimportant, or unworthy, then maybe it is time to stop listening to their silence and start listening to yourself. Silence is also a tool of power. It is used to manipulate, to control, to keep people on edge. Some people use silence as a way to make you question yourself, to make you feel like you are the one who needs to prove something, to make you chase after them. And the moment you start doing that, you hand over your power. You start believing that their silence means you need to try harder, when in reality, their silence is revealing their true intention. When someone values you, they do not leave you in confusion. They do not make you doubt yourself. They do not keep you guessing. But silence is not always negative. Sometimes it is a blessing in disguise. Sometimes silence is a door closing so that you can finally walk through another. Sometimes it is life's way of telling you that you have been seeking validation in the wrong places. And sometimes it is the push you need to stop waiting for people who were never truly meant to stay. So instead of fearing silence, embrace it. Let it reveal the truth that words often hide. Let it show you who is willing to stand by you and who is willing to walk away. Let it teach you to stop chasing those who are not choosing you. Because silence is not just an absence of words, it is a presence of truth. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can find the peace that you truly deserve. Focus on yourself. It sounds simple, yet it is one of the hardest things to do in a world that constantly pulls you in different directions. We spend so much of our time worrying about what others think, how they feel about us, how they perceive our actions, and whether or not we are meeting their expectations. We invest energy into relationships that drain us, friendships that are one-sided, and situations that leave us feeling empty. And in the midst of it all, we forget the most important person in our lives, ourselves. It is easy to get lost in people, to get caught up in their opinions, their judgments, their approval. We find ourselves adjusting, compromising, and bending just to fit into their version of who we should be. But the more you chase validation, the further you drift from your true self. The more you focus on others, the less attention you give to your own growth, happiness, and fulfillment. And the truth is, no one else is responsible for those things but you. You have one life, one mind, one body, one heart. And yet so often we treat ourselves as if we are secondary, as if our needs can wait, as if our dreams are less important than the demands of others. We neglect our passions because we are too busy fulfilling obligations that do not align with who we truly are. We silence our voices to maintain peace in relationships that do not nurture us. We put ourselves last and call it selflessness when in reality it is self-neglect. Focusing on yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. It means choosing yourself even when others do not. It means prioritizing your happiness even if it disappoints people. It means setting boundaries, saying no, and walking away from anything that does not serve your growth. It means realizing that you are not responsible for fixing everyone, making everyone happy, or holding on to things that drain you. When you focus on yourself, you start to see life differently. You stop comparing your journey to others because you realize that your path is uniquely yours. You stop needing external validation because your confidence comes from within. You stop chasing love, friendships, and opportunities that are not meant for you because you trust that what is truly meant for you will never require you to lose yourself. You begin to pour into yourself the same way you have poured into others. You take care of your mind by feeding it knowledge, positivity, and self-affirmation. You take care of your body by nourishing it, respecting it, and treating it with kindness. You take care of your soul by surrounding yourself with people and environments that bring you peace, not chaos. You start investing in your goals, your passions, and your happiness instead of waiting for someone else to give you permission to live fully. The moment you choose to focus on yourself, something shifts. You stop feeling desperate for attention because you are content in your own presence. You stop settling for less because you know what you deserve. You stop feeling anxious about losing people because you trust that the right ones will stay. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself to anyone because you know that your worth is not up for debate. It takes strength to choose yourself. It takes courage to walk away from situations that no longer align with your peace. It takes self-awareness to realize that your energy is precious and should not be wasted on things that do not bring you fulfillment. But once you make that shift, you will realize that nothing is more powerful than a person who is fully focused on their own growth, happiness, and success. So start today. Start now. Stop waiting for permission, approval, or validation. Stop giving so much of yourself to people who do not value you. Start putting yourself first, not because you do not care about others, but because you finally understand that you matter too. Turn rejection into redirection. It is easy to see rejection as a dead end, as something that confirms our worst fears, that we are not good enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough. But what if rejection is not meant to break you? What if it is meant to guide you? What if, instead of seeing it as a failure, you saw it as a sign pointing you towards something better? Rejection hurts, there is no denying that. Whether it comes from a job opportunity, a relationship, a friendship, or a dream you had been holding on to, it stings. It makes you question yourself. It makes you wonder if you could have done something differently, if you should have tried harder, if you were lacking in some way. But the truth is, rejection is not always about you. Sometimes it is about alignment. Sometimes it is life's way of removing something that was never meant for you so that you can make room for something greater. Think about a time you wanted something so badly, a job, a person, an opportunity, but it slipped through your fingers. At that moment, it felt like a loss, like a door being slammed in your face. But now, looking back, can you see how that rejection led you to something better? How it forced you to grow, to push yourself, to explore new paths you would not have considered otherwise? That is the power of redirection. Rejection is not a stop sign, it is a detour. It is life telling you, this is not the way, there is something else waiting for you. But the problem is, most of us see rejection as a personal failure, instead of the opportunity that it truly is. We dwell on the disappointment. We internalize the rejection, letting it define our worth. We let it make us afraid to try again, afraid to dream, afraid to believe that something better exists beyond what we lost. But if you shift your mindset, rejection can become one of the most powerful forces in your life. It can teach you resilience. It can teach you patience. It can teach you that no matter how many doors close, the right one will always open at the right time. It can push you to explore paths you never considered, to discover strengths you did not know you had, to grow into the person you were meant to be. Some of the most successful people in the world have faced rejection time and time again. They have been told no, turned down, overlooked, and underestimated. But instead of letting rejection break them, they let it fuel them. They took every no as motivation to work harder, to refine their skills, to prove to themselves, not to others, but to themselves, that they were capable. And eventually, rejection led them exactly where they were meant to be. The same can happen for you. The next time you face rejection, instead of asking, why me, ask, what is this teaching me? Instead of seeing it as a loss, see it as redirection. Maybe that job you did not get was never meant to be your path. Maybe that person who walked away was never meant to be your person. Maybe that opportunity that slipped away was making space for something greater. Trust the timing of your life. Trust that rejection is not the end of your story. It is just a chapter, a lesson, a stepping stone. Keep moving forward. Keep believing that what is meant for you will always find you. Because rejection is not a reflection of your worth, it is a reminder that there is something better waiting for you. All you have to do is keep going. Your presence is a privilege, not a plea. You do not exist to beg for space in someone's life. You do not have to convince people to see your worth, to appreciate you, to choose you. If someone does not recognize your value, that is not a reflection of you, it is a reflection of them. your presence, should never feel like a negotiation, a compromise, or something that needs to be earned. It is a gift, and only those who truly understand that deserve to have you in their world. Too often, we find ourselves chasing after people who treat us as an option. We make excuses for their inconsistency, justify their neglect, and lower our standards just to keep them around. We tell ourselves that maybe if we try harder, if we give more, if we prove ourselves, they will finally see our worth. But here's the truth. Your worth is not something that needs to be proven. It simply is. And anyone who makes you feel like you have to fight for a place in their life does not deserve you. The people who truly value you will never make you feel like a burden. They will not ignore your efforts or take your kindness for granted. They will not make you question whether or not you are important to them. When someone genuinely appreciates your presence, you will know it, not because you begged for their attention, but because they willingly give it. Relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, should not be built on desperation. They should be built on mutual respect, effort, and appreciation. When you treat your presence as a privilege rather than a plea, you set a standard. You no longer tolerate being half-loved, being overlooked, or being someone's afterthought. You stop entertaining people who only show up when it is convenient for them. You stop seeking validation from those who do not deserve a seat at your table. You start surrounding yourself with people who see you, who value you, who show up for you, not because you beg them to, but because they genuinely want to. One of the most empowering things you can do is walk away from anyone who makes you feel like you are too much, too difficult, or not enough. You do not have to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's small-minded view of you. You do not have to dim your light so that others feel comfortable. The right people will never ask you to become less just to make them stay. The right people will celebrate your presence, not treat it as an obligation. The moment you realize that your presence is a privilege, you take your power back. You stop feeling the need to chase, to prove, to convince. You stop tolerating bare minimum effort and one-sided relationships. You recognize that you deserve to be surrounded by people who uplift you, who see your value without you having to remind them, who choose you with certainty and not hesitation. Not everyone will understand this. Not everyone will be able to meet you at the level you deserve, and that is okay. You were never meant to fit into every space, to be loved by every person, to be accepted by everyone. Your energy, your kindness, your time, they are and they should only be shared with those who truly appreciate them. So stop making yourself smaller for people who refuse to make space for you. Stop begging for the bare minimum. Stop holding on to people who let you go without a second thought. Stand tall in the knowledge that your presence is a gift. And if someone does not see that, it is not your job to convince them. Let them go. Right. People will never need to be convinced of your worth. They will recognize it from the moment you walk into their life.